one. And number two is the Teams meeting. If we can, please just cut our cameras and our mics. That would be great. I think I'm going to hand over to Corey because we're recording this meeting and we don't want it to spend too much time, if that's all right. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to get all this, the settings and everything correct. Thank you, Nico. Hi, everybody. I believe that you are all or most of you are back from leave and that you're still going strong despite of this COVID pandemic. Yeah, I don't know, Nico, if it's appropriate. I don't know. I've seen many of the mines and the operations and even the CIE. The past 2 weeks, we've lost 2 prior colleagues of ours to COVID. I don't know if it's appropriate to have a moment of silence for these guys that lost their lives, especially due to COVID, but as well as I'm not aware of any other incidents this year so far. Maybe you can just advise.
That's fine, thank you. Go ahead, Lee.
Okay, thank you. We'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. I trust that you all received the agenda for today's meeting, and we had a lot of discussion points. So from my side, I think it's important for the purpose of the meeting to discuss these issues, and then maybe at the regional meetings we can present some presentations and give feedback. But I think for this is to list and to discuss the issues that is currently pressing on the members and in the industry specifically, and just to get a general feel that where we at and what's happening, you know, especially at this time of year. So if I can continue, is that the first one in point 3, the explosives legislation compliance. So I believe that everyone is aware that we as EXMS have been contacted by ASPASA to conduct some legal compliance audits, and we have done a few, not many, but we have done a few, and maybe we can talk about that. So what we've been discussing between myself and Nico, and I would like to get the meeting's view, if that can work or is that a need. Because due to COVID, the movement and physical visit to the operations is an issue and is a constraint at the moment. But we believe that there's still some value that we can add and some assistance that we can provide to the operations, especially with regard to the CIE, the system information. And we also include the mining rights and the letter from the DMR to receive explosives on the bench. The information on the CIE system, the CAS system, is and refer to the legal appointments of the responsible person of explosives on that site, the magazine masters, who's responsible, your permits, transport permits, licenses, magazines, and all those type of things. So we have found on numerous audits, and the few that we've done for our ASPASA members, that is not up to date as it should be. We've done an audit last year on one of the ASPASA's members, and we follow up during the this week. And what we could find is that all the changes and the things that was wrong and that needed to be changed and new applications submitted and everything, that none of those things have been done. So although we are able to assist assist clients with those applications and to review and to update those information with the CIE, many operations choose to do that themselves, which is fine. However, when we follow up on audits that has been done over a year or almost a year back, none of the updates and changes have been done and finalized yet. So that's an issue that exposed the operation, it exposed the manager, it exposed the business in as such. I don't know. Any comments? Okay. Maybe if I can ask, Colonel Yuri, not to place you on the spot, sir, but what is your take on the current accuracy and integrity of data integrity and accurate of the information on the CES system? Is there a need from the CIE's office, and what's the process? What can you...
Corey, sorry, I lost your transition. You asked my take on, and then I lost the communication. Can you just repeat?
What's your take on the accuracy of the information currently on the CES system? My take is, from what I previously said just now, is that many of the operations information regarding the responsible persons, the legal appointments, responsible person, magazine masters, the permits, and details. Many of those details is outdated. And during an audit that we've done, we made some recommendations to the specific operation to change and to update that information. And this morning, when I looked at what was done, we could find that nothing was done to that. I don't know. Maybe you can just highlight to the members and to the audience what is the criticality of your necessary legal appointment being up to date on the systems for the CIE.
Thank you, Corey. If I may respond. It is critically important to ensure that mines, quarries, ASPASA members, whoever is involved in the mining industry, keep their records up to date. If we talk about records, we refer to, let's say, mining rights, the accurate name of a mine. There's a lot of mergers and other aspects happening in the business world where people change names, but it is not done so on the licenses and permits. So it's very, very important to update this information to make sure that there's legal compliance. We expect our local inspector nearest to any particular mine or user of explosives to conduct an annual audit at that mine, but due to manpower challenges and other shortcomings, it is not really happening. So it is advised that people can make use of professional services rendered by yourself and some other people in the industry to help them. It takes off a lot of the administrative burden of people. If they follow the processes and to do the updates, it can be done. And if you have the updated documents, then there's legal compliance. And I believe everybody wants to comply legally. I think the mining industry is exposed to so many sets of legislation, and it is so easy these days to also land into trouble with the DMR, with Section 54s, even the Hawks and other people where we have poor control of explosives and people are stealing explosives for illicit purposes as ATM attacks and CITs. the mining industry is in the radar screen of legislators. So rather comply, make sure everything is up to date, and it is just easier for everybody. Compliance is the motto of the game. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, sir. Any comments from anybody? So please see if I miss, just come in and say if you need to. If I'm not seeing a hand raised or something, I can't see anything yet. Okay. The second point that we would like to just mention is the legal appointments. The explosives related appointment, magazine masters, responsible persons, receiver issuers. We are providing training for these people and also assist where these people are not yet, or appointees are not yet registered with the Chief Inspector of Explosives. We can assist them to get registered, because it doesn't help that the company has appointed a person, but the person is not registered on the CES system with the Chief Inspector of Explosives. Then that legal appointment is not active. You can charge him interdepartmentally. However, the Chief Inspector will charge the or hold the owner accountable for anything that goes wrong. The training, we are currently in the process of making it. We are able to provide the training on the internet, online, also due to this COVID, and also due to the fact that then we don't need to get everybody in from afar. So we are able to present the relevant training over 3 sessions, covering the introduction of the explosives legislation, as well as the Explosives Act and the regulations, the CIE requirements, as well as the Mine Health and Safety Act, Chapter 4, and the DMR guidelines and regulations. That's over a 3 one-day sessions online, and we can accommodate people from, all over the world with the technology available. What we want to recommend is that we assist operations to update their legal information on the CES system from the at the CIE, and that we can do offsite and online with Teams meetings and emails and telephone communication. And we can also review and advise and recommend regarding risk assessments with regard to the safety application, handling, transport, and use of explosives, but also into the control of explosives during the whole process. And then also the operational procedures, review and advise and assist to get the procedures also updated and aligned with the latest legislations and the leading practice in the industry. What we also assisted some of the operations with during the past year is to obtain authorization from the DMRE for blasting operation within 500 meters in terms of Regulation 462. We had numerous successes in obtaining such authorization from the DMRE. So that's also something that we can advise on and assist with in obtaining those things. That's basically what we wanted to discuss, and I think more importantly is to get some feedback from the meeting, from the attendees. Is there anybody struggling with it? Do you have concerns or issues regarding these issues raised in point 3.1? And even afterwards, we can if you want to discuss now certain issues, you're welcome. Otherwise, we can communicate later on after the meeting offline. We can take it offline. Thanks, Nico.
Thanks, Corey. I don't know if there's any questions or comments from people in the industry. Maybe it's an opportunity time to ask and maybe make a comment or two, if you don't mind. Okay, it seems to me everybody is happy. Then we're going to go to 4.1, which is Maurits. Can you help us and take us through? Maybe there will be questions afterwards.
Thanks, Nigu. Yes, I'm going to just quickly touch on these two subjects here. Firstly, we talk about improving of blast results. Again, I think just to elaborate on what Corey has said is that apart from the legislative issues, I think your on-site controls, especially in today's environment where you sit with where money matters and sense is starting to count, I think it's very important that one should always look in terms of your production, that your fragmentation is optimized through the best possible leading practices. And we at EXMS can assist you guys in obtaining that, as well as with high wall stability. And I don't want to give a big lecture here. Maybe you guys know more than me. But I think very important, if we talk about fragmentation, then for me, what is extremely rare is that people sometimes don't understand what is good fragmentation. So I just want to give a definition and then we can discuss if you guys disagree. But the good old people, I've read up some on the old material in the 70s, and they said that blasting practices which gives the degree of fragmentation necessary to obtain the lowest unit cost of the combined operations of drilling, blasting, loading, hauling, and crushing should be the referral of good fragmentation. And I would really like to hear the inputs from the guys in the industry if these wise words of a piece that was written about 60 years ago is still paramount today. Well, from the deafening silence, I gather then that that it's important that we all just understand that we tend to think that fragmentation is only a blasting issue. It's not just a blasting issue. It emanates from drilling, and then it is then transferred into blasting, and your blast results is then transferred onto your loading costs, and your loading costs is transferred onto your hauling costs, and your hauling cost in the end of the day into your crushing cost. So in the end of the day, that's what we try to do at EXMS, is help you and assist you guys to get the best fragmentation results to have an overall reduction in costs. So if you guys are experiencing some issues, we are gladly there to assist you guys, and we would like to help you to see that we can go through this year with all its challenges to be a more efficient and effective year in terms of drilling and blasting. So you can contact Corey and have a discussion there, and we can assist you, because that brings us to the second part, is in terms of how much energy you put into the ground, and that leads to high wall stability. So again, your fragmentation requirements in the end of the day versus your back break is also a very important ratio, and one also needs to consider that you need a certain powder factor to ensure that you get the correct fragmentation results, which will transpire into your downstream cost savings. And that leads to back break in the end of the day, which is an extenuating circumstance in all of this. And there, one should start asking the questions when you look at back break, how that affects your high wall stability. And just three things that I've noted here over time is, firstly, is that people sometimes tend only to drill and blast and then handle the back break, and then make that the problem of the next blast when they need to advance. And we just asked the question, maybe one should look at alternative ways in which you'd use, for instance, something like decoupled blasting techniques in your last rows, for instance, or where you use inter-row delays, where you can actually optimize the use of your energy and the movement of the material to help you and stabilize your high wall, which you are creating, and the same there for incline drilling, which can also maybe assist you in not just drilling at a 90-degree angle, but start looking at inventive ways of how you can actually use your last rows for favorable backward inclination while you are advancing on your block. So I think that's in terms of high wall stability. And also what we also have gathered over time is the presence of residual toes that was left there prior to the drilling and blasting of previous activities, which also is a major issue, and people tend to not address it and not clean before faces, and these also transpire into high wall issues later on, apart from the geological issues that we sit with. So we can look at blast controls and mitigation and how we can help and assist you guys in measuring exactly what is that fine balance in terms of putting energy in the ground, using your drilling geometry and techniques in leading practices, and also assist you guys in PPV reporting and advice on how to use timing and so forth. So we are absolutely there for the industry to assist you guys in what way possible. So if there are any questions, we are glad to assist.
Right, guys, any questions to Maurits or Corey at this stage? You're all quiet today. From the union, how are you guys, Nikki? Marius, any questions from you? Comment? Seems to me I've lost everybody.
Nico, Jeremy here. I think, yeah, a lot of operations don't put enough effort into their blast designs, and a lot of guys still, I don't think, are using electronics, which just gives you a much more uniform blast. So, yeah, I think a lot of guys need to relook at that, because it does make a cost savings throughout the whole operation. So just from our side, hopefully some guys take on the opportunity and then get their blasting into a good fragmentation for further down studies. It is the cheapest form of crushing rock compared to your crushing and everything on that side. So guys, thanks for those presentations.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, I think that's a problem. Maybe also Corey can just tell us, he's done 1 or 2 audits at some of the smaller operations, and yeah, the paperwork, I'm talking on his behalf now, the paperwork is not always 100% correct. So if you want Corey to come and do that, there is a fee, but we're willing to help people get all the paperwork and the stuff. It all goes well when nothing goes wrong, but when it goes wrong, that's when the paperwork kicks in. So yeah.
Thanks, Nico. I briefly saw a hand there. Has somebody raised a hand? Want to say something?
Sorry, I'm not seeing hands, so
Okay,
please.
cool. Okay, you can watch that. I just saw briefly a hand. Currently it's hidden now, yeah. Nico, yeah, it was what we said previously when we started off and the initial meetings and presentations we had. So not much has changed. As you rightfully said, we haven't done a lot of audits on ASPASA members. We've done a few at quarries at non-members, and we've done about 3 audits on ASPASA members. And each and every time we could see, although that the operation believes that they are currently complying and that they not getting any pushback or issues with the local office of the Chief Inspector of Explosives, the local Inspector of Explosives, then they regard it automatically as everything is okay, which is fair to a great extent. However, when we go and focus on the specific things as we do, we found a lot of discrepancies, a lot of issues that need to be addressed, and it is really alarming and concerning that after almost a year that those issues that we identified and recommended has not been addressed and rectified. So, well, that's important, not only to do the audit, however, but also to rectify the issues identified. I see there's a hand.
Jeremy?
It's Jeremy here. Thank you. Corey, I think another thing, maybe just a question from my side. I have heard that the 500-meter blasting permission is going to become an annual request or item that you have to apply for every year. Is that correct?
From our side, we haven't. The regulation does not specify a specific date. However, the principal inspector in each region have a mandate and have the authority to stipulate a time where or time frame how often these applications need to be reviewed and reapplied for. But in terms of the regulations 2018, there's no time frame. You only need to apply once. However, as I said, in different regions, the PI has a discretion to specify a specific date and say you need to reapply for that. Then you have to jump through those same hoops again. Yes.
Thank you.
Letitia, see your hand.
Just a comment on what Jeremy asked now. We found in all regions that you have to do it annually, submit the documentation. So all DMR is going that route now. It used to be only KZN and Limpopo, but it's across the board now.
Thank you. Noted.
Sorry, Corey, I've got something that I want to just throw in while we've got you and some of our other colleagues are clued up. We had a problem not the end, I'm talking rubbish. The beginning of last year in Mpumalanga, where the PI of DMRE said that you have to go around to all the people and all of that, and they were making a 2-kilometer area where you had to go and get permission and all of that. So I wrote to her, but I also wrote to David Nsizwe, Chief Inspector, and she quickly came back to me and said that's not true. And somewhere I've got the letter from her, which I'll find and circulate again. So if we get these funny requests, because we said you're not following the law, 2 kilometers is not
Yep.
the issue.
Yeah. Thanks, Nico. Yes, I think it's important that we do, take everyone back to the law and see where they have a discretion and where not, and what they apply, that we ensure that they firstly comply with the intention of the specific legislation and the regulation, and then take it from there. And well done. I think we had this discussion last year. I think it was a meeting at ASPASA offices in Randburg, where we said you need to write a letter, and I think that's the way to go. And I think that's the value of ASPASA to its members, that you're not alone. We can come together, have a discussion, and write as an organization, as an association, to the legislator and address it collectively. And I think it weighs more than each operation. I mean, the strength of us all collectively is much more than the sum total of each one individually. So well done. I think that's correct. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Corey. Just for the others, I didn't pay him to say that, so please ignore that. I didn't bribe him to say that about ASPASA. No, he's absolutely right. Guys, I think we finished with 4.1. Maybe we should go on to 5. I see water management, Letitia, and dust suppression, also Maurits. So Letitia, I don't know if you want to kick off here and maybe take us through what you got.
Sorry, Nico, water management. I've
Yeah.
put 500-meter radius and
Okay, maybe the name's in the wrong place. It might be Maurits, but I got your name on the agenda. Water management drainage model. No, it's most probably Maurits. Sorry, it could be.
Yeah,
Could be wrong.
guys, yeah, it's from our side as well on the service offering. Just to introduce you to that. What we have found over time is that in terms of the National Water Act of 1998 and the regulations that was published afterwards, there's a regulation there in Government Notice 704 that says protection of water resources is that every person in control of a mine or activity must take reasonable measures to cause effective measures to be taken to minimize the flow of any surface water or flood water into mine workings, open cast workings, other workings, and then it goes on in the end of the day, and any other openings. And what we have found is in our dealings on the mines, especially on the surface mines, is the way in which the open pit is actually just generating the sump or the main water collection point of a mine. And we are in a position, with the aid of our partners, to do what we call watershed analysis, and that is where we actually determine what is the major flows. It doesn't have to rain, because we just make it rain in your pit in a digital sense, and we study the water flow areas in your mine. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Niku, but maybe I can just share some material for you guys to see if that is fine with you guys. Just to quickly show you guys that, can you guys all see that? Is that we do what we call an OGL model, which is a regional ground level model. And then from there we create what we call digital terrain models, which is computer models, and we construct from there major flow watershed models, and then we go on and we create for you a detailed report on exactly what happens in your mine. Especially this is a quarry operation, and you can see that we can create a digital terrain map that looks something like that, and from there we can start looking at major flows and minor flows around your pit area. And the major flows, for instance, at this operation here, is that, I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, about just right to the orange section here, that's where the workshops are. And when it rains here, good old heartfelt thunderstorm, then the whole workshop is underwater and it's flooded, and it's never been corrected. Again, also it leads to what happens with water flows is that your haul roads are most of the time the major contributing factors to this flooding issue, which is in stark contrast to your water plan in your mine. And what we all know is that in terms of performance, we need to build a road, but in terms of potential, is where we want to be, is that we need to keep the water out of the open pit area. And for that, we need to align our haul roads in such a way that it basically we can use it as water diversion portions instead of water accumulation portions. So we do a gap analysis for you guys, and there we say, right, but how does this water accumulate? Where does this water come from? And then we can work with your land surveyor in maybe adjusting just the levels in your mine and your access areas to divert water away from the pit, if that's your objective. We have a client, for instance, where their major objective is, because it's a very arid area, is that they would like to have the water being accumulated in the pit, because they use that as their reservoir. So we can assist you guys in determining where these major areas are, and if you have problems, we can gladly assist you. For instance, in this little graph here, this is the hard park where the guys park their machines. But if it starts raining there at point D, all the water accumulates there, and it basically covers the tracks of the drill rigs and the excavators. So that's how much water they accumulate in a very short space of time. So yeah, this is just to show you where the water comes from. And eventually, as I said, we create for you guys a very good report that shows you a floodplain identification, your major flows, intermediate and minor flows, and then as well as corrective actions listing what you can implement in the end of the day to ensure that your slope directions in your mine is correct to then be compliant with what the Water Act is actually indicating. I don't know if there are any questions.
Oh, guys, you've mounted some questions. Very difficult with these Teams meetings. You don't know if the people are sleeping or if they've left or whatever.
So I'll move on, because I think part of the water issue is then what do you do with all this water? We are working on a solution where we are trying to see how we can effectively use this excess water that you're now accumulating and storing, and not always using in your mine, as a form of dust suppression while we are blasting. Because we know, especially in the built-up areas, the communities are constantly bugging the quarries to do better dust control. But the dust doesn't just emanate from haul roads in the end of the day and from your crusher works. It actually starts at blasting, where you've got the very light material that is then taken up into the air and is then transferred and sedimented down in the communities after blasting activities. So we are currently working on a solution for that, and we were very, very close to an answer. We've conducted some very fruitful experiments already, where we apply then a methodology where we use dust suppression techniques while we are blasting to actually create a curtain, or call it more a blanket over your blast area, to mitigate your dust movement before it actually gets airborne. So if anybody's interested, they can talk to us.
Maurits, just before you leave, I want to ask you something, and maybe you can help me, or Corey can help me, or some of the colleagues can help me. We've picked up with environmental audit that the stuff that's in the water, and you know, quarries have these little dams, sometimes there's nice fish in them. The stuff that is poisonous, I'm told, not for human consumption, and apparently the fish drink this water because they use this water, and then people catch the fish and they eat it. And something that's new that never popped out. And then we had an incident, and I won't mention company's name, where they were pumping water to the community because there's no water at this community's place. And the person then showed us that the stuff in the water that they're pumping to a community is most probably not the best water. Is there something that you do, or some advice that you could give us? Because what we used to do is we used to check if the water was tested. So the auditor would go and say, is this water tested? Yeah, I've got a test, but they actually don't know what's in the test. So it's like saying, has your car got tires on? Yes, it's got on, but they don't look at what the quality of the tire is. And I believe, personally, I believe this is a major problem that we could be saddling ourselves up with.
Yeah, Nick, you're absolutely correct. I think the first thing that needs to be understood is that that potable water is the only water that is good for human consumption. So if your water is not to a potable standard, then it doesn't matter how good your intentions are, it cannot be used for human consumption. At most, used as grey water, and that can be used for watering something. But then again, in terms of your chemical composition of your water that is currently in your pit, that has to be tested on a regular basis, and you need to have a hydrologist report that tells you exactly what this water is good for and what it's not good for. But definitely, you cannot just indiscriminately distribute your water to the communities around your operation. No.
But I think the thing is that what I actually also want is the explosive people. They make this stuff, but we did try to talk to one of them, and he actually ran away when we tried to talk to him, and we asked him this question, and we never heard of him again. He didn't want to give his business card. So they're the actual people that are producing the stuff, and our quarries are innocently doing what they're supposed to do, break rock. But we never understood that the stuff in this explosives it's not good for water. So it's something maybe that, as Corey says, we must take up with the blasting companies and say, listen guys, there's a problem, what are you going to do about it? We're using your product, and now it's affecting us.
Yeah, I think especially where you've got abundant water, underground resources, but I'm not at liberty to, unfortunately, I'm not a chemical engineer, but I can just speculate to say is that explosives and its composition today, it really mitigates, I think, some of those issues. And should there be contamination, it should be very limited, I perceive.
Nico, what I can share with the members is that we've done some studies at other mining houses, especially at underground mining, to see what the impact of the ammonium nitrate in the explosives is. And the conclusion was that, well, the normal ANFO, ammonium nitrate, fuel oil, fertilizer type of explosives is very soluble in water. So that have an impact, where the emulsion type of or water gel type of explosives does not have that huge and that major impact in the water. However, due to blasting practices, low order detonations, there can be many blasting practices. There can be some issues and concerns. I think that should be, if someone has an issue, we can have look at it from a blasting perspective to see whether or not the blasting and the explosives is contributing to the quality of the water or not. We can definitely do that. Thanks.
Thanks, Corey. I saw Maurits, did you want to say something? Not. Anybody else who wants to make a comment on maybe this subject? Otherwise, we'll step on to the next subject. Right, it seems we've got dead quiet here. I think point 6 is a whole batch of points there, and Letitia apologized for Brian, who's their expert. But I think, Letitia, will you maybe just kick off, and then we'll get the people to help us who we've got here?
Thanks, Nico. So the main concern from Brian, our blaster, is obviously community and community involvement with the 500-meter blast radius, etc. And I know there was the Mancosa Explosives Forum, and I don't know how far they have come with the standards of all the blasting and explosive standards. But we are looking for something to assist industry regarding civil engineering, and what do the civil engineer go and look at when he goes to a house? What is the standard that industry can use, the same standard across the board? Because our biggest holdup with issuing from the DMR our 500-meter blasting permission is if there is structural damage, whether it is the mine or not, to prove through that civil engineer's report that it wasn't us.
Okay. Nico, if I may.
It's with pleasure. Carry on.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Letitia. Yeah, two things. The first one is that we did circulate previously last year the report from the CSIR that was conducted 3 or 4 years back already, and also through MRAC, they started off to draft guideline or recommendations based on that CSIR report to circulate within industry. Then there was from the Chief Inspector of Mines offices, they said that the guidelines should be legally enforceable, if I can use that type of terminology. And then they stopped that whole process. And late last year, we received an invite to that committee to discuss it. And then on the day, it was cancelled again. And up until this stage, I spoke with the Minerals Council representative this morning, and she hasn't received any feedback from the DMR MRAC apparently there haven't been any traction or movement in that direction this year so far. So we requested them some feedback and direction. When are we going to go, ahead with that guidelines, and to have the opportunity from industry side to comment on those guidelines, because currently nothing has been done since it's been stopped. Because as I said, from the DMRE head office side, they said that they don't want to submit and to present a guideline into industry with actual no responsibility to the employer to implement those guidelines and recommendations. So long story, that's the one side. The other side is that yes, it's impractical to go for each and every blast. Before each and every blast, go and see that, take photos and measurements and have a structural engineer visit the sites. So that's issues that should be addressed in those guidelines and agree with the DMRE, and which we can, obviously from our side as ASPASA and the rest of the mining industry contribute to. So I see a hand, Jade.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, well, I'm lasting here in the Western Cape, and we have quite a problematic site with the DMR in the community. We put up 4 vibros every blast. I mean, the highest reading I've had since 2017 is 9, and it's on the higher frequency side. And our noise, we've had 1 or 2 incidents where it's gone above 124. And what we're facing here is that the DMR tends to take the community side, where I believe they have no grounds to stand on. And what we have found after investigations is that the quarry actually creates an echo effect, and where your blast is a half a second, the sound that's protruded into the community can last up to 2.5 seconds. And they are mistakenly thinking that this is vibrations, and it's almost coming to a point where it's you can't win. And within the same day, I have to send all the reports to the DMR, and we have never gone over even close to the limits, but yet we still face the controversy, or we're at the knees of the community. We're bowing down to them.
Empathy with you, and it's exactly what we find at other operations. And that's also, due to lack of knowledge and insight into the technical aspects of blast-induced vibrations, air blast, noise, fire rock, those type of things. And that is exactly what that MRAC committee is supposed to address. And that is highly frustrating. Well, we started off in 2019 with the first meetings, and nothing happened in 2020. And as I said, maybe Nico, from your side, I know that you sit on MRAC itself, that you can highlight that for us, and emphasize that. I'm not on the MRAC, although I'm consulted in the task team for these blast-related issues. I think we need to highlight the urgency on that, to address that, because that's exactly the concerns we have.
Basically, we've changed our design so much. You start going backwards. Because you can't have zeros. That's the thing. And okay, I'll get in contact with MRAC, and we can see what we can do from there.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Letitia, so your end.
Yeah, if they can just share that CSIR document again. I can recall the MRAC one. I found it on my history mail, but not the CSIR one. So if we can just share that again with industry, please.
Cool. Will do, definitely. Yeah. What I found from the CSIR document is that it's a very comprehensive document, and it gives you a lot of background, but at the end of the day, it doesn't give you, the specifics that we need from industry from a practical point of view. And that is what we try to achieve with that MRAC task team. But we can do that. It's interesting to look at what the guys did, although we disagree with some of those points, because it was handled as a research document and not a really practical drill and blast and how to address the issues. So and I say that with all due respect to the members. It is a comprehensive document. We can send it. There is some value in that, but the relevant thing, or the most important things, is to say, well, this is, you need to do 1, 2, and 3 to be within acceptable levels. But as Jade rightfully said, due to this and the play it or say it ignorance or lack of insight or understanding from the technical perspective, we are struggling to get the message through. So in principle, and I believe that is what everyone is doing currently, you apply for the required approval from the DMR in terms of that regulation 462. You submit measures and you commit to certain measures in that application. You receive the approval, and then what is important, as you also, and I mean, Jade confirmed that they do take measurements, and it is very much lower than the accepted standards, acceptable by industry, but still you get this pushback and complaints. So yeah, it is an ongoing concern, and I believe we need to negotiate with and address it with the DMR and through the DMR, so that they are fully aware of what's happening and how it works, so that they can assist us. Because to expect from each and every operation to sort it out with the community, that's not a good idea with respect. Yeah.
Corey,
Yes.
I think quickly, you're going to just circulate that to me, and then I will make sure the members get it, and then maybe ask Jade to let us have a summary of the problem and anybody else around. We've also, for your benefit, we've got some high-powered trade union people on this meeting today who also sit on MRAC and these others, and they will, I'm not saying we're going to buy them and they're going to go with us, but I think we need clarity. Oh. And the problem with the Mine Health and Safety Council is again closed down. It gets closed down every second week. There's somebody got it, and there's people have died there. But I need to, from ASPASA side, push this thing. And I'm sure if we put it out quite well and we explain it what our problem is now, we need urgency. I'll send it to the Chief Inspector, who's the chairperson. So we'll go right up there. Yeah.
Nico, the other thing is also, we discussed it previously, late last year, in late December, we received, you actually received a complaint from one of the community leaders in the Steelpoort area. Maybe not relevant to the ASPASA members and the quarry members, because it was directed to, actually the complaint was directed to a bigger mining operation and a contractor there. However, the issues from there, the communities are also looking for understanding and someone to give them answers, those things. So I think we need to emphasize and highlight this through the Mine Health and Safety Council, MRAC, and the relevant bodies, so that we can address that. We're not going to sort it each one individually. We need some understanding and real understanding into the technical issues, so that the DMR can discuss that with communities when they talk it, and not leave it to the members to fight their case. I mean, that's not fair, you know.
Thanks, Corey. Are we finished with 6.1 then, which was the measurement of guys? Please let me have any stuff that you've got on this whole blasting thing. I think we need to take it up as ASPASA with the communities and maybe with the DMR through MRAC. I see there's a house surveys and there's community complaints and the DMRE authorization. Was that covered in our sort of widespread discussion now, or do you want to add something to it? Letitia, go.
That was Brian's 3 items, but they intertwine with the civil, how do you call it, assessment, because that is what's holding up some of the 500-meter permissions.
Okay.
Cool.
So again, sorry, Corey, I see you want to speak, but maybe we should just get, you know, for me to put a proper piece of paper together, I need to have, you know, factual stuff. Otherwise, I'm just talking rubbish. So if you guys could send me some paperwork on this, and maybe let's understand what the actual problem is, then I'm sure we can take it on.
Nico, I see there's a hand from Only.
Thank you very much. Good day, everybody. I'm Only from Vier and I'm from Solidarity. I would like to have clarity as to exactly what is expected of the DMRE. If you say that it's not fair for an individual mine or operation or contractors to engage with the communities around them. I am also on MRAC, and I'm the convener for the organized labor section stakeholder, and at the moment at the Mine Health and Safety Council, and specifically at MRAC, due to the impact of the COVID virus and other factors, MRAC isn't quite as effective or meeting as often as it should. The convener for the DMRE, Mr. Gagarin Damse, died late last year, and I would think you will be aware of the Minerals Council convener that her husband also passed on during the past month or so. So, and the program manager is currently acting in another position also at the Mine Health and Safety Council. So there won't be very soon relief from MRAC's side. It's just your expectations should be in line with reality there, but I would honestly like to know exactly what you would like the end result to look like. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Can I go?
Yeah.
Thanks, Nico. Yeah, Only thanks. I think it's important, yeah, what you say, and yes, we need to have empathy with the current situation that we all are trying to cope with and trying to operate businesses within this environment. Yes, it is so. That's the first thing. The second thing is that what we would like from the DMR side, and the impression and that we get from the DMRE is that they are trying to enforce legislation specifically to the that regulation 416.2 on the and it's very specific what the operation the mining operation need to produce and to do, and the mining operation do exactly that. And then because the DMRE they provide us with the authorization, but because of complaints from the community, they just merely I don't want to say ignore, but they don't look at the technical aspects and the technical reports provided to them that actually reflects actual results. I mean, if you hear noise and you hear the blast and you feel a little bit of air blast, automatically you think your swimming pool or your house or your shack or whatever will be in danger and will have damage. But I think the members and the operation spend a lot of energy and time, and it's not to say that the operation, it's unfair for the operation to discuss it and engage with the community. That's been done. What is unfair is that they are left alone to try and jump through several hoops and on their own, and there's no DMR representation that they are aware of the technical aspects and know exactly how these things work to be an intervener or to make a judgment call and say, well, these are the reports from the blasting perspective. Well, it is within acceptable limits for the industry, for the department, and then, well, to handle that. And I know it's extremely difficult, but if we do not have the intervention from the DMRE side in that talks, we are stuck with, well, we've done everything according to the technical reports. Any damage cannot or no damage can be done to a specific structure, a specific, whether it's a power line, a house, what type of structure, reservoir, and we prove that. But then the DMR hold us ransom not to extend that authorization, and that's the issue. And from a DMR, we would like specific, how can I say, principles, which we believe we have, but we need the DMR on board to agree to that principles to do that, because it's more of a PR exercise currently and a community relations issue rather than a technical issue. I don't know if that helps. If that helps.
Thank you. I hear what you say. I'm doubtful whether the just before I respond, am I allowed to respond?
No, only go.
Chair?
Yeah.
Sure, please,
Thank you.
please do.
I'm doubtful whether that the solution rests with MRAC. I think maybe you will need to approach the chief inspector, maybe have a meeting with him. Because it seems to me as to the reaction of communities to blasting and the subsequent actions by the DMRE after that. And that is the inspectorate's area of responsibility. I don't think that MRAC will be able to give relief in that regard. Besides the work that needs to be done there regarding blasting. Thank you.
Thanks, Hanneli. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Yes, I think maybe what we're going to have to ask the members is to maybe give us a small piece of their stories, and we put that into a document, and then we asked the Chief Inspector if we can have a session with him and maybe point out some of the problems and some of the gaps and so forth. I think you're absolutely right, because it's something that comes from higher down and so forth. I also understand the poor guy in the region, he gets complaints and he doesn't deal with it. Then they take it on to the politicians. The politicians come and they nail the poor Chief Inspector. I know the problem, but we need to maybe do something about that. And then maybe at some stage even do an article about it, maybe write something so minds can use this and maybe even translate it into the local language, so people can read it and understand what is blasting. Because blasting, I think it's a foreign thing to all of us. I mean, I stayed in Mpumalanga and I often hear blasting going off here, and then I think, oh, what was that? It's just it's a thing that we're not used to, and I think you're absolutely right. Thanks for Anneli for raising that.
Yeah.
Corey?
Thanks, Anya. I agree with you. I think and as I say, from the perspective, I agree 100% with you. From the MRAC, I just believe that it will boil down to MRAC submitting and drafting a acceptable document that the Chief Inspector can send out to the DMRE region as well as industry and say, well, this is the rules of engagement and this is the principle and this is how we should do it. Yeah, but I believe for fast tracking this in the environment of COVID that we are in, I support your view to have a discussion with the Chief Inspector. 100%. Thanks.
Right, is there anything else under that? Members, please, won't you just drop me a note, a short note on just some of the issues that you want us to put in a document. I'll circulate it with you in any way before I send it off. And I'll also circulate it with Hanley and my other colleagues at the unions. Because I think it's not a us and them situation. It's not the us and them fight. It's wanting to make people feel happy and accept what's going on. So let's use it maybe as a positive thing, and maybe also then educate the quarry and the quarry managers, because they are the poor guys who get the complaints and get nailed. Anything else under 6? Is there any other issue? Maybe we haven't got it on the agenda. If you want to raise something, Marius is in, and we've got a few other people that are very involved in our problems. If you want to raise something, let's give an opportunity. You can kick off if you want to. Nothing. Right, then I think just in summary, I think the one thing I would like to just ask the companies to consider is to get Corey in and let him sit down and look at your paperwork and your stuff. I think now the issue that we just discussed with communities, if the complaint comes and the DMR comes to your operation and your paperwork is not up to standard, then you got a problem. So if we make sure that's established, maybe draft a little note and say to the community, so when they do rock up there, you're prepared to explain what the situation is. So use Corey, and we agreed with him a fee which is similar to our health and safety audit fee. He spends a whole day with you and he does that. The other thing is that you let me have information and I will draft a thing and maybe we'll send that to David Msizwe, and then we'll set up a further meeting later in the year for this committee, but also ask Corey to maybe set up a bit of a training session and maybe even ask Colonel van Staden if he would help us maybe do a bit of a training session, and we'll set it all up on the big picture of explosives and the dangers and the has and has-nots and the whatever, all those things. So unless there's something else, I think we've done quite well. Hour and 15 minutes or maybe less. Is there anybody else who wants to maybe mention something? Right. If not, sorry if I'm going too quick, this meeting is recorded. Anneke will send out a thing, and it goes onto YouTube. And on YouTube, you go to YouTube and you click on, you type in ASPASA, and it brings you to all of our recordings. So we've got a space on YouTube where we keep these, and if somebody wants to read it or listen to it again, with pleasure, it should be on within a day or two. Otherwise, I'm gonna end off and say thank you for everybody who really participated. Thanks a lot. Thanks to Colonel van Staden, the unions, our press guy, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anita. Thanks, everybody. Thanks again. Be safe. Bye-bye.